Welcome to episode number 14 of the Farms in BC podcast. My name is Jay Cack, and today, Nav and I will be discussing the benefits of buying agricultural properties. Whether it be for lifestyle or generational wealth creation, we got you covered. Stay tuned. All right, Nav. So today's topic is very core to our business. Obviously, what we are is real estate agents that are specialized in agricultural properties. So pretty much all we do is buy and sell of farm properties, right? So today's topic is strictly on what are the benefits of buying an agricultural property. So I guess why would anyone be interested in buying an agricultural property? What are your thoughts?
Well, there's multiple different uses that a lot of people aren't aware of. So it's when we have our buyers consultation with a lot of our buyers, that's when we really get to tell people what the benefits are. Now there's a wide variety, and I think we should dive deep into every single topic, but there's everything from housing, cash flow businesses, rentals, tax benefits, generational wealth benefits. And I think when we dive deep into each of these topics, it'll really show what the main purpose for buying these properties are, and how they can tick a lot of their families' needs of the tick those boxes for either their living, for their business, for generational wealth. So I'm very excited about today's topic.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're usually finding these folks coming to us when they've already had this plan in their mind that they want to move forward on, or this certain purpose that they're really moving forward on. And then they approach us. It's not like we're picking people out of the sky and just kind of saying, you know what, this is the reasons. But this is a really nice kind of video topic to kind of put out there just so people can really start thinking about these purposes, and if it even makes sense for them. It may or may not click with them, but if it does, it really kind of fleshes out why.
And it's awesome when we have our buyers consultations and they give us their ideas of why they're buying, because that's the first question we ask. And then we dig deep into their personal life and their business, their family goals. And then we let them know all these other all these other things that you can do on the farmland. That's when buying agriculture is really beneficial, is when it serves more than one purpose. That's what I've seen the most successful farmers. It wasn't just for a house, or if it wasn't just for farming.
It has to be multiple layers to it. I mean, this is a very big, complicated topic as well, right? Because there's so many different moving pieces involved in it. But yeah, I mean, we should definitely start off with, I would say, that's really primary, where you live and where you work and everything else. Thoughts on that?
For housing, we've noticed that's majority of our buyer pool. We just did our review, our 6-month review. We saw that majority of the buyers that were buying under 10 acres, while majority were even under 5. And most of those people are buying either for a hobby farm or to build a house or an estate, or buy a house that's already existing. So the living portion of buying a farm, the housing part, I would say is probably one of the main drivers for majority of the sales that are happening in agricultural properties. It might be that they want to build their own house and have acreage and a lifestyle, or they would want to build a house and start a business because they've got the land, an agricultural business, build a house, put up some buildings so they can operate their business off of. Or it might be as simple as, hey, I want acreage and a lifestyle, right? So the housing part is, I've noticed it's always been the primary driver where it makes financial sense. What I've noticed mostly is land and lot prices, residential lot prices are so high. They range anywhere from Chilliwack, from like an acre, from 1.2 to 1.5, all the way to Richmond. An acre is almost close to $3 million. So you look at that wide gap of individual living in a subdivision to get a 1-acre lot versus now buying a 5-acre. They are paying more, but they'll also get all these additional benefits of why buying an agricultural property is worth it. It's not just for the house. So Chilliwack, we've seen ranges from 5 acres from 1.8 to maybe 2.1. Langley, mid Langley, anywhere from 1.9 to 2.5, and then Richmond anywhere from uh, 3 million to 3.5. So they're not too. They're always about anywhere from $400,000 to $500,000 difference from buying in the city versus in buying just a 5 acre piece to build to have that type of lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a significant difference. I mean,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, I would recommend, depending on the budget, obviously moving out east as much as you can to a point that's comfortable
Yeah.
to sustain your lifestyle. But that's one way of getting into that market, of getting that house on an acreage.
Yeah. What about like even what we've also noticed is multiple residences, right? We saw that you can put a mobile home. So now the benefits is, you can build a house or you can buy an existing house that's already on the farm. You can renovate, parents live in that house, and you can put a mobile home.
There's flexibility now. That's the main
Yeah.
difference in the last couple of years here, since those changes were put in play, right? So that flexibility, I feel like, is only going to increase over time.
I agree.
I do think that's the trend that we're seeing, and I think it's only natural.
Yeah. So definitely multiple housing is a big benefit that we've seen for the housing side of things, right?
Definitely on the population side of things. That's why I think
Yeah.
there's going to be a more trend to having more housing on acreages.
Even they've also allocated that mobile home or a second residence, you can use it as rental. So now you've got housing, but you've got your principal residence, but you've got a side area. You can carve out, say, a 1/4 acre for the mobile home and rent that portion out. And you can generate some cash flow and revenue.
Yeah, which definitely leads us into the business and cash flow side of things.
Yeah.
I guess on the business side of things, when it comes to agriculture, obviously these are agricultural properties. There's a lot of restrictions on what you can and cannot do on ALR land, agricultural land reserve properties.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, they want you to be using this for agricultural purposes, which is growing a crop or livestock or what have you along those lines, right? So whether that be greenhouses or nurseries or agritourism, right?
Yeah.
So what are some thoughts on that in terms of business?
I think the way I've always looked at farm properties, there's 3 main ways to generate cash flow. So one is the existing land itself. So the land, either you can farm yourself, and the best way to maximize the best return, whether you're on a 5 acre, 20 acre, or 50 acre, is grow a crop that's in demand, process it yourself. So either you clean it, you package it yourself, you put it in a way, you put that added value, and then you try to sell it yourself. Don't just go give it to a processing facility. That's how you'll maximize your biggest margin. Or you use that existing land for agritourism, where you get people to come there. You can have your own store there, or you can have like a U-pick, which we've seen, which was very successful. Then the second cash flow stream is rentals, multiple rentals on the property. So now if you don't want to farm, but you want to enjoy the lifestyle and the acreage, you can always lease out your land. So you can get a rate of return on the lease per acre. Someone is maintaining the land. You'll also get your farm status by leasing it. And then, so you'll save your property tax there. But what you'll also get is you can also do profit sharing with the leasee. It's not as common in BC. It's very common in Alberta and Saskatchewan and Ontario.
I've seen it even in BC as well, and I mean it's really advantageous for someone that's looking to pass it down to the next generation. They're still showing that they're actively bona fide farmers at this point in time by sharing the profit, even though they're not doing all the work for it, right?
That's right. It might be nominal, but it's still, you can still utilize that. Yeah. So land itself, leasing, and then buildings itself for the barns. We've sold a lot of properties that have existing buildings on it. So we've seen that people are using it for they're using it for their equipment storage, but they're also using it for their packing or their processing of the crops that they're using. We've also seen people lease it out to other farmers where they can just get rental income, right? Or they can just rent it out some areas for storage, right? And then the third one that I've seen, that's probably, and then the third one is just the housing rental, like the mobile home.
Even when it comes to business, when it's getting into the packing and processing and all this and that, there's levels to this as well.
Yeah.
When you're, it used to be that you could just take it to one of the bigger facilities. They would just pack it and do it everything for you, right?
Yeah.
But in recent times, after 2008, I've realized that not just me realizing it, it's actually the entire industry has actually shifted to a point where you actually have to do the packing and processing on your own parcel before you bring it out. And this is in terms of vegetable crops.
Yeah.
So if you're doing corn, for example, that's
Yeah.
one of those really good crops that is a cash crop that's
Yeah.
quick to turn throughout the year. So you can probably do maybe one of those, and
Yeah.
then you could do another crop at the end of the season, late season, right? So that's one of those crops that's easy to go right away.
Yeah.
Whereas crop like berries does take time to mature and get established, get the roots
Yeah.
in play, right? So that takes a few years to actually come to a point where you can actually farm it.
Get a good return.
Yeah. So I think a good way to start is maybe the first couple of years while you're building your business plan for a berries or something else. You can actually just start off with crop like corn or another like cash crop.
Any annual temporary crop
Yeah.
that's not fixed on the land.
Yeah, field crop. Yeah.
Field crop. What I've noticed is like the margin difference, what a farmer gets paid if he sells it to a packing house versus to what a grocery store sells it for. There's a wide gap. So you could only imagine that's how big the margins are. So that margin can be profitable for a farmer. I know some 5-10 acre farmers that grow their own food, pack their own, and they sell direct to the consumer. They're making more profit than a 20 or 30 acre farmer on a 5-10 acre farm. And it's not about the land, it's they're maximizing every step of the way with that product. They're not just saying, oh, I grow it, let's just send it here. They're taking it and they're finding their own sources of wholesaling direct to either a retailer or direct to the consumer.
That really depends on the client or the owner himself,
Yeah.
right? If they're able to be inventive and actually go out there and put into play marketing and put into play the proper procedures to actually maximize efficiency so that they can sell themselves.
But it's been done.
It's been done and they're doing it.
Online marketing.
More so than before.
Yeah, online marketing. Just people selling. I've seen people sell their crops just online.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just it. Like before, it just, the internet, online marketing wasn't so much of a thing. And now it's like, it's proliferated, right? It's everywhere.
What I've also noticed, maybe year one, it's hard to build that consumer, the clientele. But what I've noticed is every year that you do it, it builds more and more. And those same people come back to you. So if you're selling blueberries, they know, hey, that's the place I go buy every year, my blueberries. You're selling Russian garlic, hey, that's where I get my garlic. Oh, they have fresh zucchinis or cabbage or whatever. It's like a routine, an annual routine for them that they just go and buy it there. They know it was fresh, they know it was clean, and they're getting it directly from the farmer.
And even like small farm stands or homestead, what do you call them? The farm gate style, little fruit stands and whatnot. You can just get a little square space, a little tap-in card, and you're good to go. Like it's just so simple now to get it going, right? It doesn't have to be all cash, right? So it's just removing barriers of making it easier for farmers to sell their own crop.
That's right.
I think that's the best way to go forward right now. What about alternative sources of income? I know there's a couple ways you can maximize profits. I mean, obviously you have a big parcel. There's events you can host. There's agritourism now that we were discussing previously as well.
So for the land size, yeah, you're right. You can either do leasing. You can utilize it for events. You're allowed to do a certain amount of weddings. Yeah, I know people are leasing out just patches of grass just for birthday parties or you name it. It's just any hosting of any sort of events. And it's been a very lucrative business model here in the last 5-6 years. It's really taken off.
Yeah, it's a lot of our clients, like I was mentioning before, are very interested in buying these parcels with a nice home on it and a nice area where they can actually set up a wedding facility
Venue, yeah.
or a venue of that sort, right? And yeah, there's a lot of stipulations there because it's not exactly it's not easy to get approvals for. But if you're just using a patch of grass and you're putting up a tent, great. It's very easy to get approved for that.
What I've noticed is it started off with weddings, but it's now spiraled into like baby showers, it's birthday parties, any local small event. Everyone's doing it now, right? And that's where the wineries are thriving. That's where some of these agritourism places are thriving that have like a nice setup within their barn, even, right? So there's so many different ways you can push the limit with this.
Now, you just remind me, like, just as a new dad myself, I'm just looking at the baby showers. They're becoming so grand nowadays, right? And
even the reveal parties.
yes. Oh man, they're bringing in helicopters for those now.
Oh, I saw a few of those.
Some amazing things, right? And I mean, this is where these kinds of events are really going to thrive, when you have open spaces, outdoors in the sunshine, right? I feel like this is just going to be more and more kind of drifting towards that kind of a space.
Yeah, because they're utilizing the land on the off season,
and it's not harming the land. It's actually still open space. You're not,
you're not contaminating the land. You're not wasting the land. You're not affecting any. You're not harming or affecting any agricultural.
Yeah, you're really embracing nature at that point. Exactly. Really, it's nice to have that.
Exactly, and I think it gets more of the people involved in farming, because if you didn't have these types of options out there, people would just go to banquet halls, restaurants, and right. And I think they're embracing agriculture this way. It's like a indirect way of doing it.
And I guess personal enjoyment really comes into this at the end of the day as one of the biggest benefits of living on a farm, on an acreage. If you're on a 1, 5, 10 plus acres, it's really having that space to yourself, and that's the real joy that comes out of it, right?
Well, the lifestyle. It's literally, you're buying a lifestyle. You're buying peace and quiet. You're buying no neighbors. You're buying freedom, right? You're buying the rural living, no traffic. You're literally, that's what you're doing, is you're buying. And that's what I've noticed, the people that once they move into acreage and they ever have to sell and buy just your basic house, it is so hard for them to move. And that's why we see a lot of our clients, once they buy, they rarely sell once they're living on the farm. It's that they enjoy that lifestyle so much.
And it's funny how we mentioned the turnaround for our clientele is typically like 20 years, whereas a regular residential property is probably 5, 7 years or so, right? Life changes. Whereas somebody on an acreage, they're gonna make it work after 20 years. They're gonna be like, we gotta pass it to the kids, or whatever the case may be. They're usually gonna keep the property as long as they possibly can, as long as it makes sense. And I mean, there's reasons to sell, but which we'll discuss in another episode. But at the end of the day, it's having a better life for your children, even your pets, even like the quality of life and growing your own garden and everything else, right? It's just all.
And even family bonding. I've noticed a lot of our clients, they host more. They have gathering spaces, So the lifestyle, it's unbeatable.
And finally, we have generational wealth creation, tax efficiencies. Maybe you can speak to those.
So what we've noticed is a lot of these people that are buying larger pieces, they're buying actually for their grandkids. We've seen a lot of high net worth of our clients buying agriculture properties either to farm or to lease, but to roll over to next generations. It's a safe, slow growth investment where it's land. Land has probably been the safest investment that it's ever tested in time, right? So for them, they're buying this as almost like an inheritance for their grandchildren. We've also seen it where they do it more for tax purposes, where they buy the land, they farm it, and then they roll it over to the next generation tax-free. There's a lot of agricultural tax exemptions when you buy agricultural properties versus buying a development property or any other type of property that's out there, right?
So if your intention is to pass it forward as a legacy property, for example, that's the biggest benefit. And personally, I think that's the biggest reason that I would want to buy an agricultural property. And I feel like other people can probably relate as well. I mean, Sometimes it's just in our blood to want to pass it down and kind of keep it in the family for a long period of time, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's other things as well. I mean, if you did buy a farm property today, it does not necessarily mean that you have to live on that parcel forever. You can actually roll that over into another parcel, or you can upsize your parcel and still take advantage of all of these wealth creation advantages from the tax benefit.
That tax benefit, yeah. And what I've noticed also is that on the tax side of things is the capital gains exemptions for farmers. So when, say, if they don't want to pass it on, or they don't want to keep it as a legacy property, or the next generation doesn't want to farm, the $1 million tax exemption per individual on title when they sell is huge. So that's $1 million per person tax free when they sell. So, you know, you can shelter, depending how many people are on title, and if they're farming, you can, every individual is going to get $1 million tax-free exemption. So even if you don't want to roll it over or leave it as a legacy property, when you exit, you're going to have this massive tax savings as well.
Yeah, and I think the caveat for that is that they actually have to be bona fide farmers. They actually have to be showing income. This is all tracked. You can't just put yourself on title and act like, you know, you're going to get that $1 million exemption. Right? It has to be within reason and showing that. Awesome. I think that pretty much covers it. I don't know. Final thoughts or?
I would say if you're ever looking to buy a farm, always do a buyer's consultation. Be open with what your plan is, what your strategy is, what your exit is. This way, when you come see us, we can help and guide you of how to set all of these things up.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of nuances to a lot of these things that you know, maybe we can provide a little bit more context to that you may not have thought of originally, and it may make or break your decision entirely.
Even by
yeah, and either way, if it helps you guys make a better decision, right? That's the best way to go forward.
Definitely.
Awesome.